everyone, and welcome to this special conversation on NDTV, Culture, Crafts and Cuisines. The 3 C's which will be on display over the next few days when the world leaders arrive here in New Delhi. And someone who has been involved in the meticulous planning is Union Minister Meenakshi Lekhi, who has agreed to speak to us. And what better place to speak to you, ma'am, than National Gallery of Modern Arts in your chamber here, because you also are Culture Minister. So thank you so much for your time. And we do believe that on the itinerary of the spouses of the world leaders is a visit here. What are the special preparations?
So special preparations are pretty substantial, and you'll be happy to know that we are hosting a very beautifully curated exhibition called Roots to Roots, R-O-O-T-S to R-O-U-T-E-S. And that exhibition is an exhibition of showcasing India's journey. And the very first piece, the piece de resistance, is the piece which is the oldest chariot in the world, and it is more than 2000 BC old. And that's how the antiquity of this country needs to be exhibited, that it is at that time we were this developed, that we had the chariots, we had the swords, and so did we have the wars. In addition to that particular piece, which is preserved till date, it's a most amazing piece in itself. Then showcasing from that time frame to Vedic period, the reading and writing part of India, where knowledge was so important. So we have a piece from Indus Valley civilization with and post that with a slate, and on that slate small letters are inscribed from Brahmi script. So we have Brahmi, we have Kharosthi. So that goes to show that both writings in India were prevalent, from right to left and left to right. So when people say, oh, from where has Arabic come in, I can always say it's come from Kharosthi, and we also had Kharosthi and we also had Brahmi. So that's the beauty part of it. Some very, very exquisite pieces. And roots, in terms of our roots which we took on land, and we took the roots on by sea to reach wherever in the world, and that's the kind of roots we have tried to show, the navigation tools to the method of trade winds, etc., knowledge of science, oceanography. Indians had it all.
So this is NGMA.
Yes.
What about the main building, which is Bharat Mandapam?
So Bharat Mandapam also will have all the C's in place. And Bharat Mandapam, there is a gallery which we've curated, and that gallery is called Culture Gallery. In this Culture Gallery, exhibition involves many pieces which have come from outside the country. So all the participating countries, the invitee countries, their pieces have been brought in to showcase at that particular Culture Gallery. Magna Carta to the Declaration of Rights, and the very first election which Korea saw. From Indian perspective, 4th or 5th century AD, are a copy of a particular shlok, Rigved, which says Sambadadvam Samgachatvam Sambho Mananisi Janatam, which means that let's speak in one language, let's walk hand in hand, and let's have the mind and the soul be in harmony. So
in terms of the depiction and the entire showcase that we'll be seeing, lots of efforts have gone into it. When did the preparations begin? Was it on for the last 10 months?
No, all these things have been in planning, and multiple sets of meetings, and multiple people, and we've all been at the receiving end also many times. Many presentations have been thrown out. So I think that's the way preparations happen.
So there's not a personal touch of the Prime Prime Minister?
Absolutely, and that's why I said presentations have been thrown out also. So, I mean, just to give an insight, so some things had been planned for the ladies and the spouses, and they've said, you know, like fashion and dresses and fashion show and this and that. So I was like, something more substantive. So, so of course, all these elements are part of experience, but the interaction cannot be just this. So, the first half of the morning, we are taking them to Indian Agricultural Research Institute, and there the story of millets is what is going to be spoken about. So millets become, like food becomes important for every household and for every family, and what's going to be put on the table becomes important for all the people, you know, everyone across the globe. And in that sense, a curated menu around millets, a conversation around millets. India has made it the year of millets even internationally through the UN. And this declaration is bringing focus on the sustainability, in addition to the fact that whenever we are talking about Indus Valley civilization, etc., the granaries had millets in them. So it is the most antiquated food that Indians have been eating all this while. So from nutrition to climate change to sustainability, millets is the answer.
So you'll be talking about it to the spouses all through. There'll be somebody perhaps accompanying them, the protocol officers.
There will be people. They will. We have yet to see who all will be there, but obviously the protocol will be followed, and people will be there with them. The scientists will be there, and farmers will be there. Women farmers will be there, and also the labs, the beautiful labs. Now everybody knows about ISRO, and I'm so glad that Chandrayaan 3 happened, Aditya L1 happened. And everybody gets to know the prowess of Indian scientists, but very few people will recall that we were a country which was food insecure country, and we had shortage of food. And from that time to this period, that we are feeding 1.4 billion people, in addition to the fact that countries, our neighboring countries and our friends, people in Afghanistan are also being given food by Indians, and like many other countries.
Yes. Since you've spoken about food security, I'm going to come to points of outcomes. And these are questions being addressed to MOS External Affairs. You know, because joint statement is something that the government has been emphasizing on. India's presidency has also been washed out because of the events that have happened. COVID-19. There was also the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. All efforts would be about for that getting that joint statement. How optimistic is the government now at this point when Sherpa meetings have got over?
So I'm so sure we are there, and on many fronts we have achieved unanimity on many subjects, including cryptocurrency and global financial issues. We've brought forward many things, and so the methodology which has been adopted is. One is the chair summary. In the chair summary, whoever speaks, whatever gets to be recorded. And the other is the outcome document. In the outcome document, whatever is being agreed upon by all is put across. Because in all these multilateral fora, the methodology adopted is that of consensus. So only if there is consensus on things, only that can be put in. Everything else, you are free, because it's a democratic process, you are free to make your point and speak about it, but that will form part of the chair summary.
Okay. Ma'am, the Prime Minister has written to all the G20 members for the inclusion of African Union. Recently in an interview, he emphasized on the role Africa has to play because of the larger multilateral world that we are living in, and there cannot be a growth of the world if African nations remain underdeveloped. What is the response that you have got from the G20 members?
No, this was very well taken and very well accepted, and that's why we look at the global leadership of the Prime Minister, and because of, I think, his acceptance by the global leaders is, and because the philosophy he comes with is Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, let no one be left behind. In addition to the fact on the practical side, and I'm talking on the material practical side, in addition to the fact that it's only morally correct to get them in, the practical side of it is that if you have to work out at an economic policy, the economic policy needs to consider everyone and every aspect of it, and it has to be a comprehensive policy. In that comprehensive policy, you will work out the supply chains. And when you work out the supply chains, right from procurement of material to the working on the material to the finished goods have to be taken care of. And unless you have taken care of the resources, and most of the African nations are very rich in resources, but they could be depleted in investment or finance or skills. So the people who have the investment capacity or who have the technology to skill others do not come forward to initiate that process. The resource mismanagement is bound to happen and can lead to all other kinds of conflict. So the best way forward is to comprehensively work together, and thus African Union and other countries from Global South, and becoming the voice of the voiceless in Global South, has been the primary drift which this G20 has seen over the years. And that is why this G20 will be remembered far more, because this will be a watershed moment for all subsequent G20s which are yet to come.
And I was speaking to former Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott yesterday, and he said that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is perhaps best placed to ensure that African Union becomes a part of G20. What paradigm shift is the government of India hoping with this inclusion?
So we are hoping that we just don't say, we act on things. So when we say Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, it's just not a nice words to hear or listen to, but this is something to act upon. And when you need to act upon, you need to take everyone forward. And unless you manage the resources well, which come from African Union, the global north will also not be able to sustain themselves. And it only makes economic sense to put in the money which is going to result in growth and better projects and better delivery systems. So unless you put in money which escalates growth, because global north, there is a stagnation in the economy. So if you remain focused on global north, you're not really making assets. So you need to move your projects and economy for economic benefits to places which will lead to greater growth.
Digital public infrastructure, because the finance track, yes, so there has been a lot of emphasis on it. Yes. And India has showcased its UPI success as well. Is this a template that you're ready to share to the world? Because among the deliverables that have been agreed upon is this. And you're looking at perhaps a possible timeline?
Yes, and I think this has already been agreed upon, and people have gauged our strength also. People have gauged that how India has been working in a most transparent manner and battling corruption, in addition to the fact that inclusion has been our motto, which we have brought into our system. So you can imagine this transformation in just about last 9 years. Just imagine 9 years of this government in last 9 years have transformed the country. And I don't want to make it political, but people were very suspect that, oh, how will this happen? So much of illiteracy, we don't have phones, we don't have internet. But I'm so grateful to the private sector who has rolled out 5G and has worked with the government to make public goods available to the country across. So country which was lacking in the infrastructure in terms of internet availability, etc. Today we are the highest consumers of data per person, and we have the cheapest data. So all this has been possible because the public sector, the private sector and the government have worked together for the well-being of this nation.
And The Prime Minister has often spoken about women-centric development.
Yes.
Women leading governance.
Women-led development.
Women-led development.
Yeah.
You're part of his government. Will that also be a point of showcase, and what is the element that will be showcased in the next 48 to 72 hours?
I'm so sure that we have been doing it over a period of time. We have been repeatedly doing it. So the very place we are sitting, we did a program on the women artists. So you'll be surprised to know that on one side, women's creativity quotient is recognized across the globe, but there have been very few women artists of recognition. How does that happen? If you have artistic quotient, should there be not more artists? But the fact is that when it comes to economy, when it comes to money, when it comes to recognition, when it comes to networking, women tend to lag behind as compared to men, in spite of their talent. So we had a exhibition here of women artists, along with, you know how that exhibition was sort of ushered in by a band of CRPF women performing the rifle exercises. So this was to showcase India's strength, both in terms of military and paramilitary forces, along with the artistic sense.
I have two more questions for you. One is the framework of the multilateral development banks. The focus, of course, is about the new age challenges and how these institutions must be recognizing this and also preparing themselves for it. Is this also kept in mind with the idea of inclusivity? The idea of having the African countries perhaps getting their capital being tripled upon and the banks being perhaps viewing them differently?
Absolutely. As I said in the beginning, Global South is not a pejorative term, with inclusion in G20 and India leading that pack. We need each other and none can work without the other. The MDBs require this particular drift in the policy making. Where the money grows, you have to put your money where money will grow, and also put your money where it will bring results. So I'm repeating myself. There is a stagnation in the global north, and if you remain focused on that, the money doesn't grow. So it only makes sense to put the money where money will bring results. And that result could be in terms of human development, this could be in terms of infrastructure, this could be in terms of latest technology. And we've seen how cryptocurrency or management or bad management of cryptocurrency can lead to non-state actors being making inroads into democracies and other people's government. So we need to come together to handle all this situation. Otherwise, we are already going through polycrisis situation, and polycrisis is going to be X multiplied by X.
That brings me to my last question. Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin won't be there among the leaders who will be attending the summit. Would India have wanted, as it has the presidency, that more world leaders, perhaps all the world leaders who form that grouping, to be present?
So I would say India will look at the outcomes and outcome documents and how we have led ourselves. And I usually say it's not others who make me or you at our levels of people, persons. It's not others who get to define us, it's how we feel about ourselves. So our presidency remains our presidency, which is going to showcase such beautiful results. And that is not to undermine anybody else, but to take it in a stride. And the stride is that each country gets to be represented by the leader who they wish to represent. It's their prerogative. So if they choose to be represented by person X, or by, in this case, Z wishes to be represented through Lee, Mr. Putin wishes to be represented through Mr. Lavrov, it's their choice. And you really can't say much, and that doesn't reflect a thing on G20 or India's presidency. Usually, more often than not, these are internal issues within those countries which lead them to make certain decisions.
All right, Meenakshi Lekhi, pleasure speaking to you, and I'm glad you could give us time in this really, really busy schedule. So thank you for speaking to NDTV.
Thank you.